Okay, welcome back or welcome to the Yogi Roth Show. I'm your host, Yogi Roth. And if you missed any previous episodes, just go to yogiroth.com. I'm fired up for this series because it's with QBs or QB minded people. We are diving into the singular question, which is what does it mean to make it? So today I want to welcome in Malik Zaire. Malik, welcome to the show, man. I've been thinking about you for a long time. We finally got you on.
Oh man, I appreciate it, man. We go back to the lasagna days, so getting a chance to come back and see you a couple years later, and I'm still in there in the sports some way, it's even better.
Yeah, totally, man. It was really cool for me going back in time and thinking about when we met. Do you recall when we met? Because I do, and I'm curious if our descriptions of it are similar.
Yeah, man, it was one of those moments where I was very young and competitive, me, man, and getting a chance to go to Elite 11 in Old Dominion for a big stage showdown. I was building up my confidence and my preparedness, getting ready for that because I mean they had a lot of heavy hitters in that camp, and getting a chance to meet you because I was committed to Notre Dame, and walking in that pressure cooker, the lights, the cameras, action, it was set up real nice, and you kind of walked me through everything, and that's when I had found a love for doing what I'm doing now, coming from that. So I knew being a quarterback was serious when I got in that environment.
It was so fun for me. I remember walking on to uh, whatever campus that was, but I remember the players we were with. Right, it was you. You think of Luke Del Rio. I remember
Del
him being
Rio
at
was
that
there.
camp. Right.
Connor Burns was there.
Yep. Shane
Shane
Morris
Morris.
was there.
Shane
Yep.
Morris. That was like my ultra ego, my nemesis, because he was I kept calling him the best left-hander, so I was taking it personal at the time, and I had to go where he was at. So that was fun too.
Yeah, I remember first time I met you. You just had such a great spirit about yourself. I mean, it was so evident, like who you were and what you were about, and it came out to me like in your smile. Like you just the first time I met you and shook your hand, I was like, "Wow, this guy is awesome!" Like you had such a vibe to who you were. Uh, where did that come from? Like, and when you hear that, does it make it awkward, uncomfortable? Do you think I'm like way off base?
No, man, I think it's good, man, just because you can just have a good vibe to know and feel other people's energy. And for me to be able to have that impact on other people shows that I'm trying to live in that right spirit, that right frequency to give off good vibes, man. Because you don't playing quarterback, it's all about the frequencies in which you're giving off, because you can be the most talented in the world, but if you're not getting along with the guys that you're working with, makes your job a lot harder. So being a competitive guy as I am, and wanting a lot of that, a little bit of that from being only child, being a quarterback and being competitive, but still finding a way to bring guys together has always been my thing. And then football just happened to be that perfect niche for it.
Yeah, I love how you say that because it's like I think sometimes the great players or the players that find success are ones where like the game speaks through them a little bit.
Yeah.
And I felt like your personality came out every time you threw the ball or every time I sat down and did an interview with you. And you were only like 16. So if you look back on that time, like, and you're honest with yourself, like, did you feel like you had the like control of the world to a degree? Did you feel like you were still like seeking out wisdom and knowledge? Like, where was your mindset back in that era?
Oh man, yeah, 100% was just coming from where I was at in Dayton, and wanting to be the best. I knew it's going to take, knowing those right people. So thinking back on all the types of connections that people had to have a great support system that got them to where they're at. That's something that I've always wanted to have, and to be able to have the right one, you got to be able to have it within yourself. So I knew that, I set my marks pretty high on where I wanted to achieve for football, and being a student of the game and wanting to be a even better leader, you pick up on the right things that work. So for me, I was like, as long as I can do the right things and control what I can control, that effort and attitude. I used to get on like Eric Thomas and stuff. So the effort, attitude, and how bad you want it. Yeah, I thought it was all in my control, especially, seeing the success from getting the scholarships and getting the golden ticket and getting a chance to play and compete amongst all the other good guys that are on the same type of mission. I just kind of found my home within that, and tried to grow that. I always felt like I was an underdog in some respects. So getting the chance to be nipping at the bud all the time was always a good driver for me.
I pulled up my notes from back then, and you had written that one of your favorite books was called Mind Gem.
Oh yeah.
I don't know many 16-year-olds that are reading Mind Gem. Like, where did the love for? And I remember you even at the finals, like leaning into the psychology. Our high performance psychologist was a guy, Dr. Michael Gervais. I just remember you being so connected to that thought, where a lot of guys are just getting exposed to the thought around the game between your ears.
Yeah, I knew from an early age I had a role model in Austin Boucher, who was another left-handed quarterback at my high school. He ended up playing for Miami of Ohio and doing pretty well. You know, he was like the most technical left-handed I ever seen at the time. I was like, oh yeah, I want to throw just like him. Every pass was a spiral. He had it, all the mentality stuff, and his whole thing, because he was a great leader. I was the ball boy for the team. He was a great leader, and just his excitement and his encouragement. Like, he believed in his game because he cared about it and studied it beyond just what, was on the surface level of, just a coach speak or whatever. He took the time to see that there was a deeper meaning to it. And football is, and specifically quarterback, I believe it's an art. So it's a deeper meaning to it from a how do you say, a philosophical standpoint, on top of just being that personality and being consistent. So the only way you can be consistent in a game with so many variables is your mental state. So he really got me on game on having that mental mind, Jim, because I was always uh, consumed with perfectionism in your craft, right? So wanting to be able to do it right all the time, and then tapping into understanding that it's really mental combined with muscle memory, that's going to take you to that number one spot where you want to be. Because a lot of guys didn't know that. I was telling guys stuff out of the book, and they're like, not really getting it, but I was seeing how it was translating to my game, where I felt, mentally right going into these competitive situations where, you know, you can't you learn as you get older, you can't control bigger stuff like that. But if you control how you are, you're gonna find your right spot and then where you want to be.
Yeah, that's neat. On my eval of you, I'm just going to read it to you because it's from back in the day, and it's just kind of fun. Um, it says, "Rivals with Shane Morris, cordial but competitive." Um, I feel like that's a lot of high performers, cordial but competitive. I think you have to be able to do that to live in the Shark Tank, which is the quarterback room, as you've heard us say many times. But when you look back on that, like you referenced Shane earlier, you went to Notre Dame, he went to Michigan. You guys were kind of the dudes in the community, respectively, or the region of your country. When you look back on that, how do you felt like you handled your recruiting process and being comp to other players?
Well, the recruiting process is so crazy because everybody has a unique story when they're thinking about their own process and if they did it as best as they could. And I think about it sometimes too. I don't regret my decision. I do think that obviously if I went to different places from better relationships with different coaches, it could have been something different. But living with the what ifs and the shoulda could haves have always been it just didn't mean much to me because I enjoyed what I decided to do and that journey it took me on, because it led me to so many different places in at Notre Dame specifically, because that's more of like you touching a little part about all around the country, from playing West Coast to down south, the East Coast to Midwest. So that position for me and my personality, it was exactly what I wanted, because I saw it as like Elite 11. Like, if I'm going to be the best quarterback in the country, I at least get the chance to play everywhere and see everybody and get a little flavor of everything. And then if I can beat all those guys, and there's no way I'm not the best in the country. There was no way they couldn't say I didn't play anybody. Like if I went to an Ohio State or whatever the case is, right? So it was really that game within the game for myself. And when you really are passionate about chasing something to the top, you're gonna take those risks. It was obviously a risk to go to a place like that, but that's I wanted to be in that position and control as much as I could, feel like that.
Yeah, I'm with you there. You don't know this about me, but when I grew up, I had a picture of Ron Powlus on my wall, and it said,
Ron,
"Yeah,"
you
and
kick out of that.
it said, "Dear Yogi, best wishes, Ron Powlus." And
Yeah,
then he signed a football for me. And I grew up in northeastern Pennsylvania, and Ron is like a legend,
yeah, he's the legend.
legend, Curry Powlus camp. And he dealt with, I think, expectations uh, premature, right? And he dealt with Lou Holtz saying he was going to win multiple Heismans, come in as a freshman and be the man at Notre Dame. This is pre-internet, so all you had was like Sports Illustrated and
Newspapers,
NBC.
yeah, it's big. It's only big.
Yeah, exactly. And I bring that up because I never got into Notre Dame. They chose a guy named Ronnie Rodimer over me as a receiver, which was fine. But Notre Dame is just so larger than life in football. Can you paint a picture of what you thought it might be when you walked in there as that lucky lefty, that kid I met in high school, to, oh, whoa, like I'm here? Did you have that moment? And if so, what was it?
Yeah, I had the moment when I just knew what it was from the first practice. You know, everything goes out the window that first practice when you're no longer a recruit, which is what I really wanted to see. You can't see it until you get there. And then you start understanding the magnitude of the position within the school because you know, you look around the room and you're like, you know, where are these guys coming from? You know, like you sitting in a whole different environment and you know, I think Coach Gelly does a great job of adding mystique to the position, maybe just because it's such a legendary place. He does a great job of playing into the whole, you know, it's the Notre Dame quarterback type of deal. And ironically enough, his system's driven off of that. So you understand early that if this is going to work, it's going to have to go through you being efficient and being on your game all the time, which is everything that I wanted going in. And jumping into those first practices, it got real because I was an early enrollee. So, you know, things in spring, they're not like things when everybody else is coming in. So you're really just another guy if you're not really laser focused in. So I got the early experience of what it's like getting that early on maturity. And, you know, that's how I knew it was big. And, you know, when you get so um, caught up in being that perfect, not even perfect, but being that person that's the best for the team, you kind of block out a lot of different things because now, you know, you got 10 other guys you gotta be on point for and make sure you're doing your job. And so it makes it a little better. But for me, it was everything I wanted. You know, I wanted that pressure. I wanted to be in that spot where I can control my destiny, provided things go well. And, you know, when I did get the opportunity, it did well. So it's exactly what, you know, it went through a lot of stuff, but those were the expectations. And a lot of people aren't um, understanding of how big it can be. And I think that's sometimes how people get in these overhyped situations because, you know, not everybody shoots for the same type of expectation, you know, and so when that comes in, it affects people differently. And the best part about Notre Dame is you're gonna find out if you're made for it or not early.
Yeah,
Whether you hear it from Coach Kelly or the fans or just the college football landscape with Notre Dame, you're gonna know early and where you need to be on your own personal game, provided how it goes.
when you look back on that, because you've had highs there and then you had lows there. When were you really tested? Like when were you like, whoa, this is real, or even whoa, is this? Can I hang here?
Yeah, I think a lot of it was more so the things that were out of my control and being tested and how you respond to nothing that you really could do. You know, sometimes the business of football takes over where you're in a position that's just um, it's a tough one because nobody is technically not helping you. But then again, you want to offer more to a team that's maybe not in the same uh, place that you are, right? So um, it gets tough when you know you can do so much for a team and the politics of football play into it because now it's like, what am I doing with my talent? And how do I turn that into being a positive in a situation where it's easy to be like everybody's against me, right? So um, that's something that you don't prepare for in Elite 11, you know, because you're gonna get your 2 minute drill, you're gonna get your reps, you're gonna get an opportunity, but sometimes being ready is still not good enough just because of the nature of the position, because there's only one guy that can play. So um, dealing with the politics of the game is probably the thing that you can only understand once you go through it, especially on a high level like that. And you know, it's something that you can sink or swim with as well. I think it's no different than being in the starting position as opposed to, you know, being somebody that feels like they should be.
So, what's an example of the politics within the position?
Well, a lot of times you deal with perception. A lot of times you deal with collective decision that may not be people that know as much about the situation, but they play a fact into what they want. You understand early that when you plan for these teams, they know what they want. They're recruiting how they want. These coaches is, I don't believe, are super loyal to the players specifically, but more to the job at hand. And football is a result based business, but not all the time, right? So you get an opportunity where coaches are telling you things, right? Provided things happen to you. For instance, I got hurt. You go through the conversation at your lowest moment where you like everything was in front of me, Heisman playoffs, championships, we fit in the rings, all of the great stuff. Coaches going through it. Yeah, you're gonna be the guy. You're our guy. Whoopty whoop, get better. I mean, it's football. Nothing you can do. Have a great year. Come back ready to take on the team. Back to where we were. And now you got the politics of the game where it's like, well, you know, we don't really know which direction we want to go, but we're just going to do what we was. If it's not broke, don't fix it, kind of thing. So now you're stuck in a situation where they've gotten you to the point where they've convinced you it was, we're going to do this back and forth. And then they're like, well, we're just going to do what we did last year, just see how it goes. So then you're just caught in that position where I'm eligibility, done with school. You got so many different factors that you just don't want to leave. But that's how fast football decisions are made as well. It's a result-based business, and it makes it tough when the team heads a different direction, and that direction isn't where they wanted to be. You felt like, oh well, if you went the other direction, what I mean, maybe it wouldn't have been that outcome, but you have no control over that in the meantime. So playing the politics of football, you as a quarterback, there's a lot of emotional things that guys go through, guys that I've seen before me that were playing it and guys that I've seen after, all in that same room. You feel for them. There's empathy. Is never what you learn is never the other guy's fault. You can't sit there and be like, oh, such and such. It's just it's bigger than that because you don't control none of that. If you get a chance to play, you better play good.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's nothing you can do. And so, for me, in my instance, just speaking on that, I mean, I did everything right. I didn't have any turnovers. I had an MVP, and playing half the time, like doing everything that you would want your quarterback to do. And sometimes it doesn't play out how you expect it. So those are things that you don't really get a chance to see in recruiting.
Yeah. And those things are things that like life comes at you fast. I always think like in recruiting, I talk to, at the Elite 11, I talk to the top high school kids every year. And I always, at least in a non-pandemic year, I stand behind them or behind reporters when a scrum of reporters come and ask them questions. And I just listen to the answer because I do the media training. And this is pre-media training. And I'm like, wow, they're answering questions just like pros answer them because they're just copying and pasting. It's all about the team. Like they're very much like black and white. It's almost like a politician. Like they're just saying like what they think needs to be said. And then when I pull them aside, it's always like, yeah, I don't know what to say. Nobody taught me how to handle this, right? Nobody taught me how to deal with a quarterback controversy. I've been the dude my whole life, whether that's rankings in a little high school camp or whether that's being at Notre Dame and going through that. So I say that on the heels of this question. The whole nation, you could argue world, because Notre Dame is such a big brand, saw you in a documentary series, premium cable. I think it was Showtime or HBO, right?
Yeah.
Showtime, right? And I watched it because, I'm a fan of you and fan of football, and you get hurt. And I'll never forget seeing a scene, which is you in your scooter, if you will, for lack of a more creative term, right? You're in a boot, basically, and you're kind of wheeling away at this like intersection of the road. And when I thought it, like I was as a filmmaker, I was like, I get the power behind this, but I was also bummed that it put you in that light. What was your reaction when you saw that, and where were you mentally, whether you're in the moment or when you saw that?
Man, it's like the whole show I was excited about because I mean, going to getting to that point, I just felt like it was a lot, man. Fighting through QB stuff and never knowing your place and then getting a chance when everything's set up. I thought I was about to be like the Tom Cruise of the whole show. I'm like, oh, this is great. You know, I got a whole season in front of me. You know, Showtime following us, and and for it to happen so fast, to go from like Tom Cruise to the guy that just stands in at the coffee shop like a random, you know, guest kind of thing. It hurts because it comes out of left field, you know, and getting hurt, there's nothing you can really do but time. So mentally, me being who I am, I just know that whenever I get a chance to play, I just know I'm gonna do what I'm supposed to do. It's just how can I help the team, especially in the way that it just happened, still be afloat because I'm still a part of the team, you know. So mentally it was hard, you know, going from being the guy and running out and helping and being the one they look to put things together, and then being like a stand away in the boot where it's like I'm helpless, and then the camera's still there. You know, it doesn't, not like you could be like, all right, guys, thanks, just come back next year. It's like they're capturing all those moments, and it was tough because it wasn't how it was supposed to be. You know, it's just not the light and how things were going, and you know my personal belief in how my story was headed. I'm like, it's just all coming to a great ride. I mean, shoot, that was a season we played Deshaun in Clemson, but that was his first year playing against Alabama. You know, that's a whole career life change. It could be different off of that game, you know, something like that. So there's so many things that you can play in your head, and especially during that season when I got hurt, that it was hard, but it taught me a lot. And you know, even being able to look back and talk about it, I feel good about because I feel like I made some good steps along the way.
Yeah, I agree. So along the way, let's talk about that. Did you have a definition of what it meant for like Malik Zaire to make it? Whether that was a definition at 16, did that change prior to the season that you're just describing and you got hurt? Like, did that evolve at all for you?
Yeah, of course. It gave me a different direction of motivation. You know, I wanted to be the best that there could ever be. You know, especially at Notre Dame, where those are tangible things. You can look at records, you can look at, you know, stats or whatever the case is. So I saw it as the peak performance of my ability, and before I got hurt, I felt like I was just on the way. Like everything was right how it was supposed to. So I thought, you know, the things that I wanted to happen was going to happen. And then when getting hurt, it only changed perspective due to circumstance, you know, coming back thinking I was going to continue to catch the wave, and then to see that the wave was already on another thing, it obviously it makes you adjust. You know, you have to, you know, it's not too many times in life where you get to do things twice. And fortunately for enough for me, I had the grad transfer year. So that I saw that as my new direction, that I can have that kind of Joe Burrow season, you know, the season of like, you know, the one and done, and you go in there and do it and get a chance to do it again. And that, it wasn't necessarily your fault, but just how things work out. So after that, my whole thing came from, okay, how can I bounce back from adversity and have like a pre-rookie year going somewhere else? You know, that was like my motivation. Like I knew my talent was still, it was still viable. You know, I had the numbers to prove that I was still very capable of doing the job at elite level. So it was never like I didn't want the same things out of it. I just had to reform how I was going to get there and what the narrative was going to be. You know, I think a lot of times us as athletes and quarterbacks, we don't understand how big a narrative can control a lot of what you do too. So staying in that right narrative and having a part in saying your own narrative, I think it matters a lot when you're going into these situations that are political when it comes to the draft, or, you know, just even being a top rated quarterback. There's everyone that has a top rated quarterback has a great narrative. You know, there's not too many narratives that you can be like, well, I don't know how he got there. You know, these narratives are set in stone archetypes almost. So controlling narrative was big for me, and I tried to do it as best as I can and through the circumstances.
Yeah, it's interesting. My wife's working in our office, so I'm in our son's room, and he's got all these children's books behind me, and they all have great narratives, right? And a lot of them have that hero's journey arc. So if you had to put it in a sentence, when you were in high school, what did you think making it meant?
Making it meant to me, it meant getting to the peak of the peak of your ability and winning the awards that you set your goals for. Like I wanted to win the Heisman. I wanted to win national championship, top draft pick, all the stuff that you see growing up.
Okay, so you get hurt at Notre Dame. You eventually transfer, as you reference, you go to Florida. Did the definition change there?
Yeah, it only changed to it's not about being the best. It's about taking the most out of the opportunity when you get a chance. So it changed my whole perspective because I went from thinking if I just do what I'm supposed to do, how they say it, it'll fall in place to this is about opportunity. This game is bigger than just me telling my own story of getting there. If you get a chance to shine, you got to take advantage because you don't know when the opportunity is going to come. But when you do, you can still get the same places.
Got it. And I got to imagine just being a competitor. I believe this in football. I can go to any roster in the country. It could be Power Five. It could be Notre Dame Independent. It could be Group of Five. I really think that every player, 1 through 105, thinks they're going to the NFL. I just do. Like I've been around it too long. Like everybody's like, I'm going to the league, right? Me included. Like I wasn't anything special. You just think you're going to.
Yeah.
So for you, did you think that too? When you were at Florida, you made that transfer? And when that draft happened, where was your head?
Oh, so I just am a realist and I understand the politics of the game. And you know, as a black quarterback, just for instance, if you're not drafted in that top first 5 quarterbacks in each draft, it's really, I mean, like, what are you gonna do? And then I didn't have the leverage going in with enough tape to even really justify what I believe I could do anyway. So I knew I had a long road just outside of just me not getting the film, but just from the schematics of the league. I know that my window was in the either in that year that I had gotten hurt or that transfer year. That's just how it is. Is for my situation, that's what I felt like was the 2 windows I had, and um, getting into those positions where I couldn't get that right takeoff or whatever the case may be, or even the film that I needed. Watching the draft, I just kind of knew I just was back to opportunity and hopefully fall in the right place to kind of build my way up. But from a security standpoint, I mean, you look at the quarterbacks now; they all top 1 or 2 picks. Even the ones that are getting moved around. So I knew it was a long shot.
Yeah, I want to come back to something you said here in a minute, but you go to Jacksonville, right, for rookie minicamp. Uh, when they told you it was no longer going to continue in Jacksonville and you're heading home, where was your headspace? What was your mind gem like then?
Oh man, I cried, man, because I was just so happy, man. Like Jacksonville was my favorite team growing up, by the way. So to have the story feel like if I had to end it anywhere, that's where I would end it. In my favorite place growing up, watching this stuff, it was like kind of a dream come true. And then on top of that, I did really well. So it was never like, I wasn't good enough to like stay around with the team. Like I made some great plays and got a chance to, get complimented by the coaches. So it felt like I was gonna make it, to be honest. I was like, oh shit, I thought I was gonna make the team. But then you understand the politics of the game. I mean, they already signed 3 guys before I even took a snap. So, the likelihood of even surviving that rookie mini camp was slim. But, I felt good that, I worked so hard and proved to myself that I can at least taste it, at least be a part of it through all what I've been through. So
Did you know that your football career was done on that drive?
no, I didn't think it was over, but just going back to just being a realist and just the situation. I mean, knowing how hard it is to even get on a roster, let alone not have no tape and get on the roster as a quarterback of a franchise is tough. So I thought my only way would be like the sort of Tom Brady route, just but even Tom Brady got lucky because there's very few that quarterbacks last on a roster that long, regardless of how good you are. So, I kind of understood how it was headed, but I know I can still play even to this day. So it's nothing about me hanging up my cleats per se, but the opportunity at that level, is few and far between.
Man, I've always been impressed by you, and I am again here because when you said I cried my eyes out, I'm thinking, here we go. I get it. He's crying because it's over. And you're crying tears of joy because of the great chapter in your story that ended in Jacksonville. That's fascinating to me. So let's pause on that, right? If we had split screens and we were telling the movie, you're crying tears of joy, but I bet there's this fandom Notre Dame fandom, Florida fandom, Elite 11 fandom, recruiting fandom saying, oh man, Malik didn't make it. Malik didn't make it. He didn't make it. When you parallel those two images side by side, what do you think of?
Uh, one, I proved to myself that I know I'm talented enough to play. Like I'm watching guys today, and I'm like, okay, like they know I'm good. So it's like if you're like Jared Goff, like I love Jared to death, and I'm like Jared Goff is doing his thing, but Jared also knows, that I'm right there with him. It's just circumstances, So to say I didn't make it, obviously, I'm not starting for the Lions or somewhere under center right now. But from a talent perspective, yeah, I made it. Like I know I can play with these guys. Like I played against most of these guys that are on TV today. Like I jumped over Jamal Adams one time. Like, so it's not about me not being able to play, which is why I'm not super upset. But just understanding that how much guys invest into it when they don't make it and how it hurts them in the long run. I wasn't invested in being on that part of the football either. So, um, knowing as much as I could control, yeah, I thought I made it. That was my favorite team. But
Right.
Thinking about it now, no, I mean, it's still a business, and you got to have some realism in there. And me not being there now, I'm not hurt by it, but I know that I can play if they call me today.
Yeah, I believe it too. I feel the same way. I'm always like, when I talk to Coach Carroll, I'm like, I can give you a couple reps. I can
Yeah,
play
I
in
was
the
like, I
slot.
got you a couple quarters for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, totally. You said something about being a black quarterback in the NFL. I grew up with Tony Rice as a quarterback in Notre Dame, right? Black quarterback in college football. We know what Notre Dame's demo is in that part of the country, on that campus. What was it like being a black quarterback at the University of Notre Dame?
The good thing is you're just proud because there's not many of us to come through there, So I was one proud to even have an opportunity to be there. And then two, you think less of that, you think more about winning, to be honest. Because if you ain't playing good, it don't matter what, you look like. If you ain't playing good, you ain't playing good. So that's the respect that I carried about it because I mean it's true. I feel like those things come into play when you stop thinking about what it takes to win games, which that's a result-based business. So, honored that I got a chance to shed some light and add some color to the room, obviously. But from a motivation standpoint, you always want to do your best. I don't really see too many um, guys getting a huge chance like that from Dayton, Ohio, like me at quarterback anyway. So it's like, okay, for what I was able to do, I felt pretty good about it. But, thinking on how it translates in just to the college football landscape, I mean, it's a tough position because more times than not, you're fighting to find a right fit. A lot of times, most black quarterbacks are just fighting to find a right system that is going to support, not even so much of what they are seen as being able to do, but what they can do at the best, capability. Like, so that's another thing that's not talked about very often is the synergy between the talent of the quarterback and the play caller that's making those decisions because you can be the most talented in the world, but not fit into what, the system calls for, but then goes back to how you recruit them. So it's a lot.
Yeah, I feel like we always sit back, like Trent Dilfer and our Elite 11 staff will, it's always about like, was there a fit? Wherever you chose to go to, or Connor Brewer chose to go to, or Jake Rodriguez, those are two names people may not know, right?
Yeah.
Maybe they didn't go to the right place,
Just didn't
right?
go, please.
Jared
Yeah.
Goff went to the right place, right?
Oh, 100%.
Luke Del Rio might not have gone to the right place or might not have transferred to the right place, like, and on and on and on. I think what is really cool about you, like I say it again, man, like your positive outlook. And I say this quote from Dr. Gervais, a friend of ours. He said, at the core of resiliency is optimism.
Mhm.
At the core of resiliency is optimism. And when he told me that, he told the Elite 11 quarterbacks that, my life made sense. I was like, I'm always told like you're always positive, right? But I was like, oh, I'm kind of a badass. I got this resiliency in me, right? As a walk on, whatever. Same thing for you. I think you got this smile that is like radiating the screen. If you're watching this on YouTube now, or if you're listening to it, just Google Malik Zaire. But you've got this resiliency to you. And I believe from the outside looking in, I'm curious if it's true, you took that tool and leveraged football. when your playing career was done to then all of a sudden face overtime on CBS Sports, calling games, training quarterbacks. You got your own show on Game Time app. Like you've done like a little bit of everything, man, because of the game. Do you recognize the resiliency that you have? And would you agree that that is an ingredient to how you've transitioned from playing to talking about the game?
Yeah, heck yeah, man. I think my focus on being so driven on loving the game and everything about it that, I got a lot of football still in me, and understanding relationships and how your attitude affects a lot of your perception as well as your trajectory. It's easy to make it about me and say, woe is me, and everybody sucks, even if they do, even if they do suck. But at the end of the day, nobody's going to care either to have more sympathy than you're going to have yourself. So, at a certain point, I was like, all right, well, I still got to live and I still got to find a way to give all this energy that I still have towards the game and find a good way to and good place to put it. Cause I put a lot of hours in, like, about the day in and day out of just becoming great. And I think for me being able to stay consistent on that through the ups and downs and the highs and lows of not being able to play as much, I still played in my own mind. Like in my own mind, I'm still undefeated, like number one pick and all that stuff. I feel good about that in my own self to be able to convey that in the other avenues, like getting on, TV and talking about the game because I still feel like that I'm still there, So resiliency is everything because that's how people really judge you. I remember my first time getting hurt. My coach Todd Light was like, they don't really start calling you a veteran until you bounce back from injury, So I knew that I put enough time in to be considered a veteran, and I wasn't gonna let that be the last thing that they remember me for. So, I'm still trying to make an appearance on TV one way or another.
You can come on this show anytime you want, man. Uh, all right, before I let you go, I think that a lot of coaches listen to this. And I think to your point, when coaches are in it, they're in it, right? You're in the season, and there's a lot of factors that players don't always know about, right? And you learn about them as you get older. You broadcast games, or you see the game from a different lens. You're out of the locker room per se, and you see whether it's the pressure they're dealing with, contracts they're dealing with, the dynamics of a team, of a staff. There's a lot there. For a coaching staff that this season deals with maybe their starter going down or having to make a change, having to alter the locker room dynamics, what thought might you give them to ponder that you don't think maybe a coaching staff is thinking about currently?
Pride and honesty, man. I think that's, you know, coaches deal, like you said, with a lot of things outside of just saying, this is what I want to do on the team. And um, speaking from a high level position of being around high level football type of deals and see how coaches come in and out and how they operate within each other and how it affects the team, honesty plays a huge part because if you can't be honest with your players, the relationship between play caller or just coach to player or position coach or whatever is going to be hard to function as a unit because when you're going out there, it revolves all trust. And a lot of teams that have all the talent in the world and can never win nothing, 100% is the intangible things like trust and being honest. And if you decide something and you mess up, it's too much pride involved in high level coaching politics because they getting paid, and they whatever the case may be. But that pride destroys the team because we still players. We still respond to genuine honesty. If that's just how you feel, then tell me. If you saying I'm not doing this, and this, then you should just be honest. Like that. Too much pride goes into these staffs where they make a decision that may not work out and they just live and die on that boat. You can always salvage a situation if you could just less ego and more about team driven politics.
And then lastly, to players. I mean, you've made a living now connecting with players. I've seen you do it, whether it's offensive linemen or quarterbacks and everything between. You've got that ability to connect, which I think is a tremendous skill, Malik. With that said, you referenced your definition of making it in high school, when you're having success in college, and when you found struggles in your playing career. What would you tell the young you like, or somebody in college now that isn't sure if they're going to make it, quote unquote, to the NFL or to where they thought they were going to be when they got recruited?
Yeah, I think just being real with yourself. If there's things that you want to accomplish in this game, it's definitely possible with the mindset first. And if you don't believe you can do it, I guarantee you nobody else will. Especially in football. Nobody else is going to believe it until you believe it first. So if you don't think you can get there, I wouldn't even put yourself through the stress of trying to see yourself there if you don't believe it yourself. And then the second thing is, it's about fit. Go to the best fit, because at the end of the day, if you want to play at Notre Dame and you just don't feel like that's the right fit because of roster or whatever the case may be, don't go there just because it's the name. Go to a Washington, Mississippi, College State community if they're going to support you in the ways that can help you grow as the player first, right? And your intangibles, when you're in the right fit, are going to flow to everybody else in a positive way because you happy. If you're not happy where you're going because you got so much pride and so much ego on being a 5-star or whatever, then there's no way you're going to be able to make it because you're not focused on getting better. So fit is everything. And then believing in your own self. You have to, or it's not going to work. I've seen guys with the most confidence lose it because they're so dependent on other people telling them, you did good this day, you did bad this day, So the best ones care about their development first.
Cool, man. Well, thank you for caring about coming on this show. I've cared about you coming on for a long time, man, and really appreciate just having a conversation, man. So what best way people to connect with you? Because I know you're doing a little bit of everything is what?
Yeah, man, always doing a little bit of something, but just contact me on any social media, Malik Zaire. I'm always available to talk, and whatever you need, man, I'm here for it. I'm a man of the people.
Yes, you are. All right, that's Malik Zaire. I'm Yogi Roth. This is the podcast of the people as well, especially if you love football, sport, performance. This is what it's about. It's about the humanity within all of those elements. If you missed an episode, just go to yogiroth.com. Subscribe to the newsletter. We kick it out every weekend. I think you'll dig it, and I think you'll really love this podcast series. So for Malik Zaire, I'm Yogi Roth. Thanks for coming.